BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, this is the Farming Today This Week podcast with me, Helen Mark. From a Hebridean croft to a salt marsh in Devon, Farming Today over the Christmas and New Year period featured some longer reports taking us out onto farms across the country. So in this weekend's programme, we're going to include a few highlights from those programmes, and the full versions are all available on BBC Sounds. We're going to start in the Lake District, famous, of course, for its lakes and fells. But what about the historic buildings dotted across its landscape? More than £3 million are being spent restoring 20 ancient barns, a valuable link to our rural heritage that could easily be lost. Caz Graham visited Greenbank Farm in Broughton Mills, a few miles southwest of the Old Man of Coniston. There she found a barn, a lot of scaffolding and hammering, and the architect in charge of the project, Mike Darwell.
So underneath the scaffolding, and blimey, as we go in, the walls of this barn, they're probably about 2 foot thick, aren't they?
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah. Some walls thicker than other walls. We're not quite sure why this one here is quite as thick as it is. But
How thick's that one, though?
It's probably about 2 metres at its base, but you can see it just sort of narrows out and thins out as it goes up towards the gable. But it's a big, thick wall, is that one.
Tell me a bit about the construction of this building.
So we've got 2 crookblade trusses. You can see these here. So they are 17th century. They could well be older.
How can you tell?
The only way really to date those would be to dendrodate them, so dendrochronology. We haven't done that in this case, but crookblade construction through the Lake Districts was common, and it continued relatively late. The masonry skeleton probably came up around these older crookblades.
If you were thinking about a tent, they're almost like the tent poles, aren't they? With this great big connecting beam going across the middle.
Yeah, well, these ones have 3 connecting beams. So we've got a tie beam here, we've got a high collar, and we've got a top yoke as well. So there's a lot of intricate connections.
Tell you what, let's just step out again, because there's so much noise going on with the roofing and what they're up to up there. Because I know you've got another builder up there as well, and a structural engineer as well.
There, that's right, yeah. Yeah, it's quite a delicate frame, really. And basically what's happening with this building is that the crook blades are racking in one direction. They're racking to the south, and they're also sort of falling towards the west at the same time. What we're debating now, why we're all on site today, is debating, do we try and just hold that as it is, or do we try and address some of that movement and put it back to closer to how it would have been? And that's the challenge, because what we don't want to do in the process of sort of moving that very delicate historic structure is cause more damage.
And looking at this barn, you know, they are really ancient buildings, as we've been saying. You know, there's no mortar or anything. It's just basically rocks piled up, isn't it? It's like almost like a dry stone wall, I suppose, the outside of it.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's all dry built. There's no mortar up here. It was built dry. There's stones on top of each other. Dave, my colleague in there, the structural engineer, often refers to these as a bag of marbles. But having said that, you know, this is still 400 years old. There's 400 years of dry stones just sat on top of each other, held together with a bit of wood, and, you know, we're not having to make massive changes to it. So there's a lot of life left in these structures, yeah, and they're important. They're important to the landscape. Once we understand the building, we understand how it's built, understand how it's put together, we've got the skills to save it and give it another 300 years.
God, how satisfying is that for you as an architect to be able to come in here and do that kind of work?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, it's brilliant. We're a Cumbrian practice. I work all the way through the lakes, and I spend a lot of time in the fells as well, so to walk past these, knowing that we've had a bit to do with it and a part to play in making sure that these buildings aren't lost, because they hugely significant to the landscape. People use these. We got right next to the footpath there, so there's graffiti in there from 1900 and from 2020 where people have stopped, they've had the sandwiches, they've kicked the sheep out, and they've just decided to put a little mark of their own on one of the crooks, and I really like that kind of thing.
Those blooming 1920s vandals, eh? Coming up, writing on our barns.
Absolutely.
Goodness gracious me. Right, well, good luck with it. I hope it goes really well.
Thank you very much.
Mike Darwell with Caz Graham in the Lake District. Such a wonderful restoration project, and we'll be back with Caz at the end of the programme. Next, let's meet Solomon. Solomon is a Shorthorn bull, and he's a bull with a job title. He's the department bull. Owned by the Scottish Government, he's one of a number of bulls available to small-scale crofters in the Highlands and Islands who want to choose a mate for their beef herds. Groups of crofters band together to order an animal which spends a few weeks with each herd of cows before being returned to base near Inverness. For crofters with herds of just a few cows, it's more economic and practical than owning their own bull. Nancy Nicholson visited Lewis on the day Solomon was being moved from one croft to the next. Nancy joined farmer Murdani MacLeod and his partner Becky.
Many farmers on the mainland would spend hours poring over catalogues, choosing the breed statistics and the genetics, or standing round a market choosing their bull. How does it work for you guys?
I suppose if we were going to be picky, we could start asking to have specific bulls, but essentially we're like, oh, well, we'll take a shorthorn bull. So a shorthorn bull comes.
If you've got a bull all the time, then you're having to feed it, and especially over the winter. It's a heavy consumer on your land.
For only 5 cows?
Yeah, exactly. It's good to bring in bloodlines from outside as well. There's an eagle right behind us.
Oh, so there is.
You can see it's just soaring.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
It's a sea eagle.
Yeah.
It's above our heads.
Right over us. It's keeping a close eye as well on what we're doing. Maybe hoping for a few scraps of cattle nuts after the operation. So we're going to get some buckets together, put some feed in it, and then we'll run the cows out the gate, then down here into almost like a race. And then when the bull is in the pen, we'll close the pen in on it and hopefully capture it. There.
That's the plan.
That's the plan at the moment. We're just gathering a few buckets, because they all just congregate into a corner as soon as the wind comes up here.
And so what happens now? Am I holding you back?
We'll put the children in the car, and we'll need to have somebody on gate duty somewhere. Danny can do that, and I'll bring them down. I've walked a lot with these animals. He was a typical male at the beginning because he'd started leading the way with all the girls, and I was thinking he has no idea where he's going because he's never been in the village before, and the girls have been there numerous times, so he was quite funny that way, but we all got there and he was very good. Right then, guys, you're going to go in the car.
All right.
So you can, just till the bull's gone in the pen.
Do you want to go in the back?
And I'll get some nuts. Okay, well, let's see how we get on.
Good luck. So Becky's walking up the path with her bucket, and the cattle are following on the other side of the fence, and the aim is to bring them down the track and trap the bull in a separate pen. We'll see how that works out.
So that's him in the first pen. We just have to get him back a bit into this one. And there's Sweetie coming over the hill.
Good timing.
Good timing. He must have known.
What you're doing just now is looking around the pen to find the weakest link for him. And the weakest link here is either if he put his head below the pen and started lifting the hurdle. So I'm here thinking if this bull's going to get out of here, he's going to put his head under this hurdle and lift it up. The other thing is the gate's quite low on that side. So I'm standing here, so I'm like, I can hopefully deal with those things before they happen.
So I think I might move in that case. I'll leave you to it, Becky.
Well, hopefully he's just going to walk in relaxed manner.
And that's Donald just arrived.
Yeah,
Perfect
so he's positioned
timing.
the box up, so we just need to open the gate so that the only direction out of here is into the box.
And it's starting to rain now.
Oh, it's a bit wet now, but never mind.
I'm Donald McSween, crofter from Ness, Isle of Lewis, and I am here today to collect Solomon the bull and take him up to my cows. I'm just going to drop the back of the trailer and hopefully rejig the hurdles a little bit and then see if we can get him in.
So the gates fell down there, and Solomon made a bid for freedom.
Maybe I'm going to lift this corner and you lift this one and put it.
So the gates are being manoeuvred into position.
We might get lucky and she might go in and then he might follow.
There's a lot of mites in that sentence.
Yes, there is, isn't there?
They should.
Oh, that was clockwork, guys. That was so smooth.
That's
Bull
good.
and the cow went in.
Thank you.
The cow came out. Gates got closed, and he's ready to go.
You can tell he's done this a few times before. There we are.
There's plenty of things that could go wrong and it's always best when they don't.
Yeah.
So that's us.
Here's the cattle passport. It's got all the details there of breed and date of birth, where he's come from.
Where's he going? Where does he come from? Where did he go?
Yeah, that's it.
Doesn't matter where he's from as long as he produces the goods. So I've got the passport. I'll have the passport. When I get home, I'll have to put my sticker on it and sign it. But then we have to go online and make sure that we record and move it online. I think we're going to hit the road so that he's not hanging about too much.
He's got new ladies to meet.
The whole trailer is moving around quite a lot there.
Right, see you next year.
See you later, mate. Jerry.
Donald, can I come with you? Okay, bye. Bye.
Here's hoping Solomon does his bit for the MacLeod family's herd. Now, from Solomon the Bull to a cow named Hilda, and a different kind of breeding story. Scientists at Scotland's Rural College are breeding animals to help combat climate change. Their first calf, who they've named Hilda, has been born. She was bred using IVF and genetically selected material from cows known to produce less methane. Recently, the Lord's Environment and Climate Change Committee revealed 49% of methane emissions in the UK comes from farming, and mainly from livestock, and urged the government to support farmers to use both traditional and high-tech solutions, the latter of which certainly includes Hilda the calf, part of the Dumfries-based Langhill herd, which has been a source of data for the UK dairy industry for more than half a century. Professor Mike Coffey from Scotland's Rural College described it as the next step in reducing methane emissions from cows.
Dairy farmers have been breeding for improved productivity, improved feed efficiency and health and welfare for 40 or 50 years now. And of course, as a result of that selection policy, they have reduced the methane emissions per unit of milk produced by around about 1% per year. But of course, what we're interested in doing is accelerating that so that dairy farmers can sort of meet their obligations with a contribution to the net zero story for the UK. And we've been able to take a very high merit cow with good environmental credentials, flush eggs out of her, fertilise those eggs in the test tube with sexed semen from a bull who's been genomically tested for lower methane emissions, and create a calf that has now had selection for all the other traits as we normally do, but also now directly and specifically for methane emissions.
So how long will it be until you could have a whole herd like this?
I'm guessing it would be maybe 5 years or so. And then obviously those animals have to be mated and so on. The kind of analogy to think about here is that at the moment we're transitioning from petrol cars to electric cars. And that's going to take quite some years because we've got lots of petrol cars and some of them are new, and we've got to wait for them to go out of the system, and then over time they get replaced by electric cars. And probably that's going to take, 30 years or so? And the cows will be the same. You wouldn't want to just get rid of a cow that's perfectly healthy and producing lots of milk. You have to wait and replace her with a better one that produces less methane. And slowly over time, all of the cows that we breed will be lower methane, higher producing cows.
Well, a bit like electric cars, we think of cost. So will there be a cost for farmers?
Yes, inevitably, and that's a really good point to make. At the moment, we know that the government will at some point or another introduce some form of carbon tax. We don't know what it will look like and how it will be deployed. And breeding is a very long-term process, so we have to give farmers the tools to enable them to respond to the signals in good time. It's going to be some 5 to 15 years or so before the entire national herd could be replaced, and it will come at a significant cost. But if we don't do it, we'll end up with the consequences, which is, as we've seen, global warming.
Professor Mike Coffey. The Flow Country, an area of lochs, hills and treeless peat bogs stretching across almost 500,000 acres of Caithness and northern Sutherland, is Europe's largest blanket bog, a type of wetland formed from peat. It's one of Scotland's most valuable environmental assets, and last summer it was awarded UNESCO World Heritage status. Richard Baines went to meet people who live and work there, including Joyce Campbell, a farmer who lets holiday cottages. Richard asked Joyce about the impact of the site becoming the world's first peatland bog to gain World Heritage status. She said people are starting to book year-round and are staying longer.
They're wanting to go wild swimming, they're wanting to go and see a golden eagle, they're wanting to go and do some bird watching. It's a different type of tourism we're getting. I see the benefits of World Heritage status as that it is a selling point, an extra tag that we can put on what already is a beautiful area.
Growing appreciation of the bog's importance led to wind farm developers being told to restore peatland as a condition of planning permission. That meant them paying Joyce so they could restore flow country peatland on her farm.
So we're in one of our holiday lets, the most recent one that we renovated and just ready to start doing lets.
That's absolutely beautiful inside.
Thank you.
But the key to this was you used green money.
Green finance. So I used the money that I made the agreement with SSE Renewables, that they restored 160 hectares of land, and I still own the land, I still can graze the land. The cottage itself, the old part, dates back to 1815 when it was a shepherd's bothy, and we've kept the traditional feel of it and put a nice wraparound extension with an air source pump, insulated, everything that you would really want to do, but just we didn't have the cash flow, and the agreement we made with them has enabled us to give us another income stream.
That's resulted directly from the desire to restore the flow country.
Yes, and it fits in with that actually people can come and stay just within the flow country and then go and investigate it and understand it and actually get an appreciation of what the money is doing. We're not running off. I didn't go off and have fun holidays. We used a local trades company to do the building, used the local auction mart which has furniture sales to get my furniture, and our own wool in the blinds, the curtains and the blankets on the beds and the cushions. The brown blankets are the colour of the flow country. When the UNESCO World Heritage Site was unveiled, it was one of our brown blankets that was gifted to the King. They said he's going to go fishing with it. It's got its own special atmosphere. It can be wet in summer and winter.
Joyce farms sheep and beef across 5,000 acres, and in recent years she's changed her operation to embrace working with nature.
It also is alive with animals and bird life, and it's a living landscape and we're living in it and we're part of it. It's where I'm grounded, it's my home, and it's where I've worked all my life. It's somewhere I love very dearly. That's a hill drain that was put in the 60s and the 70s, just responding to what the government at the time was asking of landowners and land managers, was to drain the hill to improve grazing.
So Joyce, if you're restoring that back to bog, how do you go about it?
There's various different techniques of taking a scoop of peat from next door to the drain, popping it in the drain, mounding it. So then you also have a wet area created, another pool system created beside the drain, and then slowing the flow of the water off the hill. What we're wanting to do is hold the water back and raise the water table.
A beautiful place to visit, but cold at this time of year, like everywhere this morning. Time to head inside to the warmth of the pub.
In comes me and our old lass, short of money and short of brass. Pay for a pint and let's all sup, then we'll act our jolly old tup. As I was going to Derby upon a market day.
The Derby Tup is a traditional Derbyshire folk play performed in the winter months. It tells the story of a farmer, his wife, their son, and a giant tup, the ram used for breeding. The sheep's reared, sheared and eventually butchered. Nina Pullman visited a family determined to keep the Derby Tup tradition alive.
On a cold November night, I met folk poet Matthew Headley Stoppard in his kitchen in Otley, West Yorkshire, where he and his wife Victoria, plus two sons, Francis and Ted, are getting ready for this evening's performance. Face paint is being applied, and on the table is a magnificent sheep skull, soon to become the eponymous Tup himself.
Because you have to have a Tup in the play, and we're sat across from the one that we've made, and it is an actual sheep skull. With sort of sheep farming being so widespread in the past, that's what you would use. You would use the things that are sort of part of working life. The Derby Tup is a mummers play, very specific to Derbyshire and parts of South Yorkshire. It's about encountering a massive mythical ram or tup.
What is a mumming play, just for someone who's never heard of it at all?
A mummers play is an ancient play. It's street theatre mainly.
Why do you feel that, keeping these folk traditions alive is so important?
For Derbyshire, so it's such a quiet, sort of stoic county. It's sort of, if you were to compare it to Yorkshire or possibly somewhere down south like Cornwall, you wouldn't say that people are screaming from the rooftops about the Derby Tup. The reason I was interested in it in terms of writing a poetry collection, and now it's just part of my life.
Do you think that it does something for representation of farming and agriculture in this area today?
The play itself is celebrating how you would slaughter a sheep and use it for your wider community, and how everyone would gather around and join in with that. So I think it is. I think it does say a lot about the diversity of farming life, and how it's important to sort of carry on traditions and maybe keep traditions going.
And now my song is ended, I've nothing more to say, so give us all some money to give to charity. Faylay, faylay, follow my diddle away.
Now, as promised, let's end back in the Lake District with that project to restore ancient barns. We left Caz Graham in Broughton Mills. From there, she travelled 30 miles north to see another barn being repaired at Yew Tree Farm near Keswick.
And just over near the barn is Jamie Chaplin-Bryce. You farm here along with your wife Lizzie and, 4-year-old Stanley as well.
Yeah, hello, how do?
How do? Very well, thank you. How long have you been here?
Only just over 2 years actually. So family's been in the valley for 100 years or so. But yeah, we've moved in a couple of years ago. So new spot to us.
Yeah, this barn doesn't look in great nick, does it?
No, it's been a lovely building. It's a tremendous thing, but a little bit fragile. And we knew that this grant was about, and we thought we might make the most of it in terms of trying to fix it up as a barn, because a lot of the time these things will get converted or whatever or changed, which sometimes is a good thing, but also it's handy to keep some of the heritage and restore things as well. So it'll get used for livestock, and then we'll put the hay in and things as well, yeah. It was a bracken loft above it originally, so they used the bracken for bedding. They'll have brought it off the fell and brought it down on a sled or whatever, and then it would have been in top of there for bedding for cattle years back.
Well, look, they're getting on with this work. Can we go a bit closer and have a look? I mean, I know it's noisy, but let's walk up to this barn. I've got the cement mixer churning away outside.
On with lime at the minute, that's what's going in.
There's definitely progress being made in here, isn't there?
Yes, you can see there's some beams which have been cut and put in as lintels, so that pieces of oak out of old timbers, and they've been reused and salvaged to go in as lintels across the arrow slits and lower windows that are present. And then behind us there's these stalls. There's 10 down each side. Your cattle will have been in on each side originally, and you can see where they'll have been halted to on posts here. So.
There's still bits of chain here, and still bits of muck here actually, probably as well.
We did make sure it was fairly clean before they came, but there's still a bit more stuff to come out. Yes, aye.
Jamie, it's going to be great for you, obviously, to get this barn back in use as a proper farm building. Like so many other farmers on small farms around here, you actually have another job, don't you?
I do.
You work for Cumbria Woodlands, and you're also a skilled carpenter, and that is actually proving quite handy for this restoration, I believe.
Yes. I'm cutting some of the timbers for this project. Got some oak trees out of the woodland, sawmilling them into beams that we'll use and make the trusses for it as well. So it's good to use some local product, I guess.
You're just at the start of your farming life here with your young family. This barn's seen an awful lot of generations come and go, hasn't it? It must feel pretty good that on your watch it's getting that TLC it needs to keep it going for maybe another 200 years.
Yeah, I know. It feels good to keep it going as a barn for sure, aye. Well, it's a hard thing because it's a beautiful building as it was and you don't want to disturb that really, but equally you've got to sort of respect as much of that as you can and then take it forward for next generation as well. I don't know, they'd all be holiday lets otherwise, wouldn't they?
Jamie Chaplin-Bryce with Caz Graham in the Lake District. And that's it from us. I'm Helen Mark. The producer was Chris Ledgard. And Farming Today this week is a BBC Audio Bristol production.